It's time. Everyone who knows me is aware that I'm a huge fan of science fiction, and especially the Halo series. With a fresh season on the MCC, Halo Infinite just over the horizon, and the disastrous launch of the Master Chief Collection far off in the rearview mirror, I thought I'd take it upon myself to take a retrospective look at each instalment. And I have to begin somewhere, so I'm starting with Reach, as chronologically its events happen first. The game takes place just before the fall of Reach, which is referenced in many of the other games. You assume the control of a somewhat maverick Spartan with a sketchy history, and you are soon recruited to Noble Team, as their 6th member was killed not long before. You're quickly acquainted with each member, each with their own unique personality and specialisations. There's Carter, the leader of the team, an unyielding commander who will do whatever it takes to complete his assignment. Kat, the stern, no-nonsense second in command. Emil, literally the most badass looking Spartan ever. George, the muscle of the team and the only Spartan 2 in the squad. And June, who's just kind of there. You're soon tasked with reactivating a downed outpost as all communication has been lost. Initially thought to be unrest from the rebels, you soon discover that mankind's enemy, the Covenant, is on Reach. When you reach the outpost, you find casualties and a survivor. Noble 6 finds some kind of device on the body of the scientist and the team takes possession. Informing command the Covenant is on Reach, they are initially surprised. You are then stationed to recover Oni Sword Base, as it houses several high-valued assets and will be colossal if it were to fall into enemy hands. It's here you get acquainted with Dr. Halsey, a veteran scientist who informs you that the scientist you discovered made a latchkey discovery before his untimely death, and the card he recovered contains vital information regarding his research. After receiving a lecture about interfering with her work, Carter, being the OG he is, sticks up for the team, insisting they are just doing their job. After dark, you and June are dispatched to investigate a Covenant-controlled area and to destroy anything that could give them an edge over the UNSC. It's here you discover that the Covenant have quietly dispatched an entire army onto the planet, and this is only the beginning. The following day is an all-out war between mankind and the aliens. Faced with sky-high stakes, it's up to Noble Team to neutralise Covenant anti-air defences and teleportation devices. After downing its shield, a UNSC frigate is destroyed by a capital ship that is in a geostationary orbit. Kat hatches a master plan in a somewhat rogue demeanour to destroy the ship from the inside, using a botched slipspace drive, with Noble 6 being an ex-pilot and convincing command to give you the go-ahead. So 6 and George kit up and take over a smaller Covenant ship and overwrite its flight path to return to the capital ship. It's all work to plan, victory is within sight, but during the fighting on board, the slipspace drive's timer was fried, meaning only a manual detonation is possible. George takes it upon himself to stay behind and detonate the bomb, destroying the ship and defeating the Covenant presence on the planet. But wait! Soon after, an entire Covenant armada deploys in orbit with intent to destroy Reach. Split up from the team, 6 finds their way into New Alexandria as all communication has been lost with command. They assist the remaining civilians and military presence in any way possible, even going as far to destroy a large Covenant cruiser to help get civilian transport away. Kat manages to re-establish contact and has you sent into the city centre as evacuating the planet is now a priority. After this, you regroup with the remaining members of Noble Team and you are sent back to Oni Sword Base to commence a torch and burn up, as you can't risk losing sensitive information to the Covenant, but whilst preparing, Kat is taken out by a rogue sniper. After arriving at Sword Base, you are given coordinates to a dead end. Suspiciously, the route is then changed all of a sudden, and then the new location is deep underground. After a secret door is opened, it becomes apparent all the smoke and mirrors are Dr. Halsey's work, saying she must be discreet as the stakes are too high. It turns out that there has been a discovery beyond any expectation, a latchkey, if you will. Deep underground is an artifact, neither human nor Covenant, housing knowledge beyond the world's finest minds. After holding out long enough for Halsey to finish her work, 6 is tasked with escorting the AI safely off the planet to a ship called the Pillar of Autumn. In the final stretch, 6 and Emil must travel across varied terrain to reach the ship on time, as Carter had to stay behind to pilot the Pelican to keep the Covenant off them. Cornered by the Covenant, Carter sacrifices himself so Emil and 6 can complete their mission. After reaching the Autumn, Emil mans a Mac cannon to defend the Pelican in which the AI has been delivered to. But after reinforcements arrive, Emil is taken out by a Covenant elite, so 6 mans the gun, destroying resistance and buying just enough time. The Autumn flies into space, safe with the new discovery that could win the war, while 6 is left behind. The Autumn is then shown arriving at a ring-like structure, stating they barely made it out. We then come back to 6 and oh god no! And thanks to their courage, the human race lived to fight another day. And really, there's so much done well with the campaign, it's hard to know where to begin. All the characters are memorable and none of them feel out of place. You actually start to care about them, so when they are eventually killed off, the emotional payoff really hits a lot harder than in other games. But really, the only one who doesn't really get a satisfactory conclusion is June, who just kind of disappears and isn't even mentioned again. But obviously the main character is Noble 6, and I really appreciate how you can customise their armour and basically create your own backstory for them. There's a lot of blanks left unfilled, and it really helps to immerse yourself within the story, as I suppose you can make them whoever you want. As well as a stellar cast, the story holding it all together is just as creditable. Nothing gets wasted and nothing feels out of place. The pacing for each moment is done brilliantly, but this is also a negative in some ways. The problem with a prequel is that there's already an established canon and storyline to stick to, and for the casual player and one who's not a lore fanatic, Cortana just doesn't make sense. As in the game, she's made out to be brand new, whereas in other entries she's stated to be years old, and it kind of doesn't make sense within the confines of its story. I understand this issue is addressed in the novels, but this is simply addressing the game itself. And like all the new weapons are effective in their own ways, but it feels like they removed more than they added. It's kind of disappointing to see dual wielding was absent, and all the new vehicles are fun to use, but I think the sandbox would have been more fun if everything was new and old was accessible. However, this is only really a minor gripe. Aside from the story, the soundtrack to go with it is brilliant. It hypes you up before battle when it needs to, and it tees up the emotional moments when it has to. It never feels like it's timed poorly, and it always fits the scene. Obviously, there's more than one difficulty within the campaign. Legendary is absolutely ridiculous. It's not because of the tougher enemies and lower health, it's literally because you'll always die to some random bullshit that comes out of nowhere, like this little bastard. But if you want the most wholesome experience, your best bet is easy or normal. And well, Firefight returned from ODST and it's fun, I guess. It doesn't really hold a candle to ODST in my opinion. I think it's just too easy. You're given armour abilities and unlimited ammo pickups, and you never really need to worry about being caught short. Honestly, if you want to kill half an hour then go ahead, but the challenge simply wasn't as tough as ODST's was. And it wouldn't be much of a Halo game without any multiplayer, and again I have mixed feelings towards it. I have fun playing it, but the issue for me is really that it feels like it wasn't tailored to fit, like the new engine abilities and weapons weren't really in mind when they designed the maps. I think the maps probably would have been suited better for Halo 2 or even 3's multiplayer engines, far better. But that said, its multiplayer remains a fan favourite to many, and its custom games are still widely popular. So I guess when I look at Reach as a whole, I wouldn't really want it made any other way. It was Bungie's final offering, and they could basically do whatever they liked. It really excelled in some places, whereas it left something to be desired in others. And I'm going to just say this now, I never really liked it when it first came out, but over the years I've grown to appreciate what it was, and especially now the MCC version is a much better version, as it offers far more personalisation options. It makes for a much more enjoyable experience, but I digress. And to be honest, to bookend the Bungie era with Halo Reach will suit me just fine. And if they made another one, would it live up to our expectations? Well, that's a story for another time. Well, I think that about covers it. Signing off.